Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time, and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through this call. Bottom line, the information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential reset of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's get started and talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq right now. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of these currencies. We are not advocating either the sale or purchase of the dinar and these other currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. Of course, the most relevant information continues to be the window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We have for months and will continue to express the opinion that we believe January of 2020 is the most plausible date for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We've explained our rationale for this for several months now, and we're going to be touching on it again today. In Iraq, right now, since last week, what's most important have been a series of announcements that have come out of the CBI. One is the CBI's announcement that they intend on the distribution of the coinage this calendar year. Theoretically, my understanding and what the CBI has said is that the coinage has already been struck and is ready for dissemination, but they want to wait until after the passage of the 2020 budget, which will not be presented to the Parliament until early November. Now, the reason this could theoretically be problematic is because in 2012 and 2014, when the CBI was talking about the reinstitution of the currency, they said that they wanted to lower dinars and the coinage in circulation for approximately 90 days before the reinstitution of the dinar. Now, if that holds true, then that would push the reinstitution from January to March of 2020. I don't believe that's going to be the case for a couple of reasons. First, the 90-day hold is completely arbitrary. And second, I don't think that if a budget were to be passed in January, they would withhold the reinstitution because the coinage had only been in circulation for, say, 45 or 60 days rather than 90 days. So I do not see that as an issue. The second announcement they made is they're going to be suspending the printing of the higher dinars, the 30 dinars altogether. Now, when they instituted the deletion of the zeros, or what I like to refer to as the collection of the zeros, the objective was to collect all of the 30 provisional currency from the general population, but they were to be reserved for bank-to-bank transactions. What the CBI is saying now is they will no longer be printing the higher dinars at all, meaning that they're going to completely eliminate the use of the higher dinars, even in bank-to-bank transactions. The only plausible explanation for that is the anticipation of the reinstitution of the currency and the elimination of the provisional currency for any and all uses. The CBI has also announced new guidelines for funds leaving Iraq. Now, we know that for years the corrupt officials have been ferreting the provisional currency out of the country. Why? Because they want to contract with third parties to negotiate exchanges utilizing the 30s outside of Iraq, whereas the Iraqi nationals in country will not see the 30s recognized if they do not turn those currencies in. So, for example, a $25,000 a dinar would only be worth $25 to an Iraqi national in country. But if they could ferret that money outside of the country and negotiate with some third party to then exchange that currency, the 3 zeros would be recognized. The CBI is putting the clamps on that as well. And the last important announcement that the CBI has made is that they claim that they have met all of the requirements for the UN, the World Trade Organization, and the IMF in 2 critical areas. One, the CBI can now claim that they have $75 billion in reserves, liquid reserves. And second, that they have stabilized and maintained the 2% spread between the auction rate of the dinar and the market rate of the dinar. Remember, the corrupt officials have been enriching themselves utilizing the spread between the auction rate and the market rate, a spread which was as high as 12%. The IMF wants that to stop, and in order for the multiple currency practices to be recognized as legitimate in the eyes of these international organizations, is that they keep the spread at no more than 2%, and the CBI has announced that they have stabilized and accomplished that objective. So again, we still seem to be on track with a reinstitution of the currency in January of 2020. Now, that gives us some time to get some things done. For myself, this gives me time between now and, say, January to purchase additional dinar. Personally, I'm not purchasing any of the other currencies. I'm even thinking of selling some of those currencies, and I may be willing to sell them at a discounted rate in order to simply take that money and purchase more dinar. Second, it allows me to make some changes. My affairs are in order, and we're going to be discussing that in a minute, but it allows me to, in an orderly fashion, make a few changes between now and January. What I'd like to do now is discuss for our callers, and particularly our newer callers, what needs to be done in order to get their affairs in order. Most dinarians are not wealthy individuals. They've not been in a position to manage a substantial amount of money. They've not had to deal with issues of investment, of taxation, of potential litigation. But Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you in these areas. It is a 2-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your dinar and these other currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts. There are a number of entities that one can establish to provide at least some level of asset protection. For example, individuals can establish LLCs and sub-S corporations. They do provide some asset protection, particularly or specifically separating business property from personal property. But LLCs and sub-S corporations cannot provide the asset protection you're going to need. As a matter of fact, a number of jurisdictions have ruled that if an LLC or a sub-S corporation is owned in the majority either by one person or a closely held group, that entity can be pierced for civil litigation. So that makes them inappropriate for our needs. Individuals have established a trust referred to as a revocable trust. A revocable trust is a statutory trust designed to exempt one's estate from probate. Probate is a process that's regulated statutorily state by state. The problem with the revocable trust is simple. They provide no privacy or asset protection. So while they do successfully exempt your estate from probate, again, they provide you with no protection from potential litigation. Some individuals have established single irrevocable trusts. Now that does provide much more asset protection than, say, a revocable trust. But the problem with the single revocable trust is that if any asset within that trust were to get involved in civil litigation, it would necessarily drag all of the assets into that litigation because the assets are all owned by the same entity, that one trust. This is why we have created a package of irrevocable trusts, and I'm going to explain in a little bit more detail why that package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. First, by establishing this trust package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would be extremely frustrating because it's going to come along at precisely the moment you've enjoyed the revaluation of these currencies. And third, the cost of a 6-year audit would be substantially higher than the cost of our asset protection trust. On the other hand, if your asset protection trust package is in place and your currencies are assigned to that trust package pre-RV, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit of this taxable event of the revaluation were to occur within your trust. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they cannot do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because included within the package is our specially designed gift subtrust. Many individuals have determined that they want to give friends and family currencies. But these currencies must be gifted prior to the revaluation in order to avoid a substantial 40% gift tax. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be made either pre or post RV on a tax-preferred basis. But again, gifting currencies post RV would subject you to a substantial 40% gift tax. The solution, therefore, would be to gift currencies prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem either giving them the currency to exchange for themselves or giving them the lump sum after you have conducted the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through our gift subtrust. By gifting through this subtrust, their currencies and their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. The language of this gift subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And because you're gifting through this package of trusts, you will be in complete control of those post-RV proceeds, meaning that you can manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow you to avoid the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years and even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax, the tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax. But the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely avoidable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. And the day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The 5th reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from above. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You assign those currencies to our trust package. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust package is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once this prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you civilly from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through something called segregation of assets, which is why we have established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer them to our trust. They revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this important from an asset protection perspective? I'll give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is the important part with regard to asset protection. All of your other assets are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity. So this trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of asset protection trusts prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there's one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trusts, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of these currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages. Many of our clients have expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is through the transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to these newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists on hand to assist you with all of the tax issues. Our offshore specialist will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. And so you're going to want well-known professionals to assist you and avoid all of the sharks that are going to try to take advantage of you right after this revaluation. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks and in other markets after the revaluation. And third, we know the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-based Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth invested in tangible assets. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, your financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, as well as managing the other sub-trusts. One optional gift sub-trust if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends and wish to manage that money post-RV, which sub-trust at any time can be converted to a standard sub-trust, and then 8 additional sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Denarians a few years back, we knew that that price tag was going to be unaffordable for too many. So by simplifying and restructuring that trust package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's simply not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum basically offsets our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of these currencies for all of the reasons that we've stated here. Now, we're going to go to the Q&A in just a moment. But for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for over a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. However, under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And it's precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. So again, I'd like to thank you for taking time to listen to this call. We are going to the Q&A in just a moment. If the things I've discussed here today are of interest to you, I suggest you have a pen and paper handy. I will give you our contact information. I strongly suggest you get our initial package. It has a lot of information about us, about the revaluation, about our trust package and these currencies in general. You're under absolutely no obligation by getting our initial package, even though it does contain everything you need should you decide to apply to establish your trust pre-RV. So I'm going to go to the Q&A. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We take no service calls on the Q&A. Clients can contact us by phone or email if they have a question, a service question. At this point, I also want to mention I've got about a half a dozen phone calls that I'm going to be making to clients that have made some requests. You will be hearing from me after this call. The second rule, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen to participate in the Q&A. So I'm opening the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is Trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC LLC.com. That's Trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC.com. Our email address is Trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC @gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD Calls and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we will only send emails out periodically pre-RV, but post-RV emails may go out as often as weekly. I'm looking at our Q&A, and I see we have no questions for this afternoon. That's perfectly fine. I hope that the information, again, that I've provided is clear. Again, I hope you will contact us to get our no-obligation package if the things we've discussed here are of interest. Our next call is, of course, scheduled for next Wednesday afternoon. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency conference call. Emergency email to schedule a conference call. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks again for listening to the call and have a great week. Bye-bye.